Sup? Not to be outdone by Nike and the new Phantom GT, we now have the latest and greatest from Adidas in the form of what we thought was going to be the X20, but instead it is the X Ghosted. Which I gotta be honest, I get what they were going for, but I kind of hate the name. You have your laceless model, the X Ghosted Plus, which is likely to retail for $275, and the laced variation, the X Ghosted.1, which is set to retail for $225. Both are available to pre-order today, with the official release date being September 1st. So we're still a month away from these being readily available. And if you are by chance interested in a pair, I'll leave a little pop-up on screen, or you can click the first link down below, where you'll be able to pick up the new X Ghosted, either the Plus or .1 model, for the lowest possible price. Now, unfortunately, I did not get early access to either of these two boots. It doesn't look like anybody did this time around, but just like I did with the Phantom GT, I figured I would make a video breaking down the tech of the new X Ghosted, because Adidas has done some very interesting things with this boot, and just sharing my overall first impressions. So if you want to learn more about them, I'm going to break down everything there is to know so far in today's video. If you do end up enjoying it, please don't forget to support it with a like. And if you are new here watching for the first time and don't want to miss out on weekly content on everything football boots, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And I feel like this goes without saying, but I'll say it anyways. As soon as I can get my hands on a pair, I will be reviewing them, and not just the top end models, the takedown models as well. Stay tuned to the channel for that. Now, just like all the other lines from Adidas, you have two top end models within the new X Ghosted lineup. Your .1 model, which of course has laces, and your Plus model, which is sans laces. That's French. So we'll start with the uppers, because that is really what's different between the Plus and .1 models, because the sole plate and stud patterns, aside from some cosmetic differences, appear to be physically the same. But the Plus model features, of course, a laceless upper, as well as a new material called Mirage Skin. And as you can see, especially in the promotional pictures that Adidas has shared so far, it is almost see-through. It's more along the lines of semi-translucent, I would say, and that's kind of how they came to the whole Ghosted name. I think just calling it simply Ghost maybe would have been a little bit cooler, but that's besides the point. It's almost translucent and kind of reminiscent of what we've seen from some models from Adidas in the past, like the different variations of 99 gram Adi Zeros, and most recently the X99.1, although this appears to be that much thinner and that much more translucent. Now, there's a few things to talk about here, and that is that, of course, this is going to be their flagship speed boot, but it also happens to be laceless. And laceless boots, I'm sure a lot of you guys watching these videos at this point in time have probably tried a laceless boot or two, and you're gonna have your opinions. You either love it or hate it. It doesn't seem like there's much of an in-between there. And according to Adidas's press release, they are claiming that this is the best fitting laceless football boot that they have ever come up with, and they're really stressing this vacuum fit effect, where the boot fits so snug against your foot that as you slide your foot in, it fills in all of the extra space in the boot, kind of sucking out the air, and you get this vacuum-like foop effect as you slide your foot in, and that sounds really cool. It's a great way of marketing the fit of the boot, I would definitely say, but at the same time, I almost feel like you kind of get that effect at least a little bit with the X18 Plus and X19 Plus, so I'm very curious to get these boots on my feet, because just based on the shape, they don't actually appear to be that different from the X18 or the X19, which did have a very subtle change, but for the most part, they fit very similarly to each other. So until I've actually had the opportunity to try them on, it's very difficult for me to say, but just based on the model pictures that they have of players actually wearing them, they appear to fit quite well. So only time will tell with that. Also, on the topic of fit, I'm a little bit concerned about actually putting these boots on, especially given that they have modified the front part of the ankle area, where it used to have that extension piece on the X18 and 19. A lot of people complained about it, but it did help with actually getting the boots on. That is now gone, so they've eliminated a lot of extra bulk, but I could foresee there being some struggles in actually getting these boots on your feet. And again, they're laceless, there's no adjustability. How they're going to fit you is not necessarily how they're going to fit everybody. So it's gonna be one of those boots, like a lot of laceless models, that you kind of just have to try on. And then there's the upper, which is specific to the Plus model. It's what they call Mirage Skin, which they're saying is a single layer synthetic material. It's obviously very thin. You can see almost right through it, but it is technically made up of 3 different layers, where you have your top kind of protective layer, which appears to just be some kind of a polyurethane plastic type material. You have somewhat of an internal grid, which is kind of made up of a textile based on what I can tell. That's your structure layer, if you will. And then there is some internal liner layers as well for the sake of comfort as well as fit, all coming together to create an upper called Mirage Skin. And what I like about this is that it does look a lot like that X99.1. It does look a lot like the 99 gram Adizero. I'm hoping that it's going to be a little bit more structured than it looks, because when you go with an upper that thin, it could potentially be maybe a little bit flimsy, but they're saying that's not the case. But from a touch perspective, I think what's going to be different about this boot versus a lot of other speed boots that are out there right now is it's not a knitted upper. This is kind of trending back towards the F50 Adizero days, where you had these super thin synthetic materials that don't really have much in the way of softness. Even the old school Mercurial days with the Tahitian synthetic that I know a lot of people really miss. As great as, I guess, textile and knitted football boots are, there's something very special about that super thin, pingy sensation that you can only get from a thin synthetic, and this looks like Adidas is kind of going back in that direction, which is something that I'm very excited about. And of course, the trade-off you're gonna find with any super thin football boot, especially when it's semi-translucent, is a complete lack of protection. I don't know for sure because I haven't had the boots in hand, but I have to imagine that if you get stepped on while wearing these, it's gonna hurt. And just to quickly comment on the look, feel free to share your own opinions down below in the comment section. I think they look absolutely fantastic, super fast, super sleek, very modern, very high tech. It's just a cool looking football boot. Moving on to the GHOSTED.1, which is likely to be the most popular model amongst professionals as well as consumers. It is the laced variation of the new Adidas X Speed boot, and it's similar in a lot of ways. Like I said, the sole plate and stud pattern appears to be identical, but the upper, instead of Mirage Skin, is what they're calling Furo Skin. You can see there's actually a black stripe on the medial side with that branding. And unlike the Mirage Skin, it doesn't appear to be quite as thin, not quite as translucent. It looks like there's a little bit more structure to that mid layer of the synthetic itself, but it's still a polyurethane top layer, probably some lining materials on the inside. I would expect it to be a little bit thicker and maybe slightly softer, kind of like what we have right now with the X19 Plus and the X19.1. But basically, I would imagine, or at least what I'm imagining based on how they look, is the speed mesh that we have on the X19.1, but just significantly thinned out. As far as the lacing system is concerned, it still appears to be slightly pushed to the medial side, but also just looks a little bit more central this time around, which I think is going to lead to better overall lockdown just based on where the laces are now positioned across the top of your foot. It's a one-piece upper construction, as you can see, and they're still pushing the whole vacuum fit effect because of that one-piece upper construction. So from a fit, lockdown, and responsiveness standpoint, I'm expecting this to be the higher performing variation of the new X-Ghosted football boots. Again, until I've worn both of them myself, I don't want to say that it is definitively the one that I'm going to like better, but that's what I'm personally anticipating. And from a looks perspective, I don't think it's finished off quite as premiumly as the Plus model is, but at the same time, I really appreciate the simplicity, and damn, does it have some F50 Adizero vibes. And then somewhat of a carryover feature from the now outgoing X19 boots is the low cut design that you have towards the heel. This is not a mid-cut boot. It doesn't appear like there's gonna be any kind of mid-cut variation. Like I said, they shortened the front bit, which I think a lot of people will appreciate. A lot of pros had modified X18s and 19s to have that shorter front piece. It still has the extension piece up the back, which I personally don't mind. And if you look at the heel liner, it still features those two large kind of heel pillows, which I am personally a very big fan of. I think that makes for great comfort. It makes for great heel lockdown. And it was honestly one of my favorite features of the outgoing X boot, so I'm glad it's going to be featured on the X Ghosted, which of course is the replacement. Which brings us to the base of the new X Ghosted boots, which is not unfamiliar in terms of its overall design. It's an external heel counter with a rounded shape. They've added a little bit of 3D detailing in there, which I'm sure shaves some weight, adds some strength, but ultimately is there mainly just to look cool. It's attached directly to a sole plate, all one piece. It has the same general layout we've come to expect from the Adidas brand over the last 10 years, but running through the forefoot, is some carbon fiber, specifically a Carbitex carbon fiber inlay. Insert. I almost had that. Now this is a feature that I'm particularly excited about because I think if you put carbon fiber on almost any piece of sports equipment, it's automatically 10 times cooler. But the way that Adidas has implemented carbon fiber in the form of an insert here really makes a lot of sense in terms of what they were going for. The inspiration for the X Ghosted, not unlike a lot of speed boots, is a sprinter spike or a track spike, where you are trying to give the player a football boot that allows them to be as quick and efficient and fast as possible. And ultimately, if you're slow, you're slow. If you're fast, you're fast. I don't think football boots are going to change that drastically, but the way that a football boot can feel when pushing off and accelerating, I definitely think can vary from one boot to the next. So what they did here is they took that kind of classic sprint frame, now speed frame design that we've been seeing since the OG 2010 F50 Adizero, and they added some form of energy return element to it in the form of this Carbitex insert, where ideally what you're expecting from this is this return of energy when the sole plate flexes to kind of spring you forward. Even if it's just a little bit of energy return, that can actually make a pretty big difference. And carbon fiber is really known for being not only just super strong and super lightweight, but really efficient at returning energy when it's kind of forced into a position and then kind of bounces back to its original shape. So just based on pictures, it's very difficult for me to say how much energy return and how much of that spring back effect you're actually going to get from this carbon fiber insert. They're also talked a lot in the press release about the forefoot being slightly raised over other football boots, which again would kind of relate it back to a sprinter spike, which from a feel perspective could really change the way that you stand and accelerate in the boots. So that's something that, until I've had the chance to try them out, very difficult for me to comment on. But unlike the carbon fiber sole plates from Nike, which I think is what a lot of people will try to compare this to, this is carbon fiber used for the sake of performance more so than for the sake of looks. It's not there to make the boot lighter. It's not there to make the boot stronger. It's there to give you legitimate energy return. So it's kind of a similar concept to what we saw from the Nitro Charge series, for those that can remember those, but in a way that I think makes a lot more sense. It's obviously not adding a lot of bulk to the boot, and hopefully it's as groundbreaking, or at least as effective, as I think it's going to be. And then the final thing worth talking about is the weight of the boot, which wasn't really mentioned in the press release, which is kind of surprising because I would assume that if a boot is so thin that it's semi-translucent, it would be pretty lightweight. And based on how it's put together and just how it looks in general, I'm expecting this to be at least a little bit lighter than the current X19 Plus and 19.1. But again, until I have the boots in hand to weigh them on my scale like I do all the other football boots, I can't really say, but I have to imagine that these are going to be pretty lightweight. And for those that will ask, because about 40 people DM'd it to me on Instagram this morning, there is a ripped pair of X GHOSTED.1s going around, or at least a picture of a ripped pair, where it seems to have been ripped right from the upper ankle part of the boot. It's a very weird spot, and I wouldn't really read into this too much. I think trying to claim this as a durability issue before the boot has even been released is totally ridiculous. And I have to imagine that most of the pairs that are out there right now are pre-release samples, which are not necessarily the same as the final retail product. I feel like Adidas at this point in time, when it comes to textile uppers and just thin synthetics in general, they have a pretty good track record of durability. So I'm not making any claims on durability as of right now, and I don't think you should either. And that concludes my initial thoughts on the new X Ghosted Plus and X Ghosted.1. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to support it with a like. And again, if you're interested in pre-ordering these boots for yourself for the lowest possible price, first link down below, go ahead and check that out. If you have any questions regarding anything that I talked about in this video, or just questions about the X Ghosted in general, feel free to leave all of those questions down below in the comment section, and I'll do my best to get an answer out to you as soon as I possibly can. If you're not subscribed to the channel already, make sure you hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification so you get notified when the next new video goes live. You can find all my social media information linked down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.